Thank you. Good evening, friends. My name's Tom. I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Hi. It's great to be here, and I'll tell you, it's great to be sober. Could you imagine if we were drinking? Oh, my God. San Diego. Wow, we'd be out in those boats. I believe only we can identify with the feeling that we all experience. All brothers and sisters here that are sober and that are walking through the town and gathering like we're gathering and everything. That's a feeling that, you got it, so you know what I'm talking about. It's something that's great. And we paid the price for it, didn't we? We all paid the price for it. I heard when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, you paid the price for that chair. Don't give it up. Don't give that seat up. Believe me, because out there is nothing but a jungle. And the only thing you have to do in AA is pay attention. That's all you got to do. We paid the price. Now, if we listen to the experiences of other people and perhaps identify with our own experience, we do very well. I come from South Brooklyn, and I grew up in the streets, and basically drinking was part of growing up. I mean, everybody I associated with drank. If you didn't drink, I didn't associate with you. And I went to school, and I think I had, long before I even picked up a drink, I had the defects, the alcoholic embedded in me already. I was always a hustler. I always took care of myself. I always ran with fast crowds. I was going to grammar school. I was a bookie for the nuns. They loved to play the horses, and that was right up my alley. That was my direction. So with that type of action, I never failed. I was always promoted. I never cared for school. For some reason or another, I never cared for school. But I did go through grammar school, and it was like everything else. During the Second World War, we used to rob the scrap yards at night. And then we didn't have to go to school the next day because you go on a scrap drive, which we had stolen the night before. So, used to come in with the little wagons with the scrap steel and everything. It was always hustling, wheeling, dealing. And as I started to get older, it just increased. The wheeling and dealing increased. I was a saloon drinker. I drank in joints. I wouldn't fly over them today. But that's how we drank. And the joints I drank in, it was one bullshit and another. That was it. You had 4 kids. I had 5. You made $200 a week. I made $225. Your brother's a priest, my uncle's a Monsignor. You know how we are. You're never going to top an alky. Never. Drunk or sober. That's the truth. This never stops until we stop it. Even in our sobriety, it wheels and deals and wheels until we reach a level, I believe, that it's sort of reversed a little bit. And we wheel and deal in better directions, constructive directions, so they say, and I did too in time, But that was how I grew up. I was a pukey drunk. I was a fall down drunk. I was always sick. I was the type of hoople who would pass out. And you'd just throw me in the back or something. And I'd lay there, you'd probably roll me or whatever, it made no difference. I would start out with perhaps $100 in my pocket. I wake up with maybe about $4 in silver and say, wow, what a time I had. I was probably rolled for about $80, and the rest I probably spent. I was the type of drinker who always left something for the bartender, and I'd hang the guy up on a corner for a pack of cigarettes or something. But that was the way it went. Trouble seemed to come to me very early in my life. I don't recall when I picked up my first drink. For some reason, I just don't recall when I picked up my first one. I do recall that I haven't had a drink today, and that's very important to me, that I haven't drank today. And like many of us that I'm sure can identify with the feelings that go through the life of reality, that's very, very difficult. I know it was for me, and it still is. This program is a fantastic program. When I approached it and I came in, the big book was great. The steps, I loved them. I would go to the bed with the big book. I loved it, As long as things were going my way, man, those steps were great. But when it don't go my way, you know what you can do with those steps. You know what you can do with the big book. Because I was embedded all my life, and I wanted things my way. I had to be in that driver's seat. And simply because I stopped drinking doesn't mean that I'm going to change my ways. It doesn't. That comes, for some of us, only speaking for myself, that came in time. It took a little time for me because coming from the areas that I came from, the streets and everything, I always thought there was something in here that you're scheming something. There's something that you want from me. And when I seen the basket, I says, that's it. Until I looked in the basket. You ever look in that basket? Oh, believe me, that's not it. Believe me. But again, that was the way when I arrived, and growing up, it was the same old stuff, trouble and things like that. Hustling as a kid, shining shoes. We had a big Navy base in Brooklyn, and I used to go down there with the shine box, and any sailor that was silly enough to give me $5 for a 5-cent shine, I'd tell him I'll get the change. I leave the box and every goddamn thing. I was gone, with the $5, And he'd kick that box all over the street and bust it up. I go steal another box. What's the difference? You go get another box and you shine shoes again. Another sailor maybe give you a $2 bill or something. You never had change. You were gone. Leave the box. That was the way it went. You hustled newspapers at night, and that was another way you hustled money. You used to pay $0.50 for the papers, and you used to sell them for $0.05 in the saloons. You always walked in, you gave the bartender one for free, and you were allowed in. And that was your saloon. But again, wheeling, dealing, growing up and everything, and money was never a problem in my life until I got sober. Whenever I needed money, I would just go and get money. How or what doesn't really make too much difference today. But I never had problems with money. Simply because I never dealt with the reality of life. I always lived in fantasies. I always hustled. There was a place in Harlem. It was the St. Teresa Hotel. And I used to go up there and we used to buy gallons of King Kong. What a drink that was. $5 a gallon we used to pay for it. And we used to sell it for $1 a bottle. If you had your own bottle, 75 cents. So again, hustling, wheeling, dealing, and things like that. I found myself one day before a certain judge who seemed to know me, and I'll never forget it as if it was yesterday, him looking down, "Hey, Tom, how are you?" "Not bad, Your Honor. Yourself? How's the family?" He says, "You're back again, huh?" And a long story short, it was one of these deals of either you go into service or you go upstate. Which do you want, Tom? And being an alcoholic, I took the easy way out, the easy way. And that way was the service. I'll go into service, come on. That's a piece of cake, I seen a lot of John Wayne movies and everything. You know, come on. The service is piece of cake. So I went to service. I was there 2 days, and I didn't like it. They gave me a raincoat and a helmet liner. It was in Fort Dix in Jersey, and it was hot. And I'm saying to myself, what the hell am I doing here? I say, I'm, what, 90 miles from New York or something? That is bullshit. Oh, off come the helmet, the raincoat. I don't need this shit. I went home to Brooklyn, you know. And my mother says, Tom, what are you doing here? I says, Ma, don't worry about it. I says, sure. She says, you can't do that, Tom. I said, why not? I said, why not? There's no war. It's 1949. I said, no war's on, nothing. I said, it's over. You know. Yeah, but you got to go back, Tom. Ma, please. Come on. I don't got to do nothing. That night, my brothers get me drunk, and they take me back. And they turn me over to the MPs at the gate, you know. It was like a piece of pizza, you know. Yeah, you delivered this ahead, you know. And the following morning, they put me in the stockade, and I go before the provost marshal, and he says to me, he says, you only in the service, he says, 2-3 days. He says, and you went AWOL? I says, what? AWOL? What do you mean AWOL? I don't know what you mean. Absent without leave. I said, I don't know. I says, I was probably in a blackout, or I didn't know where I was. So they got out my records, and he saved my bacon, because I was never sworn in. That's what saved me on that particular arrest. He's looking for it. He's going through the files, and he says, you know, you were never sworn in. I said, I told you that. You know, I'm not in the Army. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing here. So within 20 minutes, my hand was up, and I was sworn in. You know? And he says, you walk again, kid. He says, you're going to do some time. I said, all right, you know. So with that, I stayed in the service, and I'll tell you the truth, for anybody, it's not a piece of cake, the service. It was never what I thought it was. You know, I went through all kinds of service, and I could never understand, and it's very difficult for me even today, how somebody from West by God, Virginia, tells me to get up out of that bed and is ordering me all around and, you know, stand tall like a Georgia pine and all of this. I said, you never had shoes until you come into the Army, and you're telling me what to do. I said, what do you care? I forgot more than you know. And he said, boy, I'm the sergeant. I said, yeah, you know, what do you want from me? You know, sergeant. That don't mean shit to me. So one morning he come in, he rolled the bed over, boom, and I went down, and I broke a rifle butt over his back. I don't know, I must have got very upset or something. And I wound up in the first stockade of many of them while I was in the service. And I'll tell you the truth, I was in and out of the monkey houses many times. One time I do remember it was one of the worst ones I was ever in, and it was in Kentucky. It was in Fort Campbell, and it was around this time of the year, a little earlier, and you couldn't even get anything to drink in this place. You couldn't even make it. So the Korean War started, and I was in the paratroopers at the time, and there was 107 of us in the stockade. And they turned around and said, we're looking for some volunteers for Korea. Anybody want to volunteer for Korea? Oh, 106 of us stepped forward. One guy, I don't know what the hell was wrong with him, but he stayed back there. I thought Korea was in Vermont someplace. Who the hell ever heard of Korea? I never heard of Korea. I found out where it was, you know, but they did let us out, and I wound up in Korea, and basically what I do remember of Korea is that it was very cold in the winter and very hot in the summer, because I was a blackout drinker, and I don't remember a hell of a lot about it. You know, I remember coming back from there, and I was coming back on a carrier. It was the Leyte. To me, that was a big, big carrier. And the Navy says, "Nah, this is a small one." I says, "Big to me." And I listened to all the Army guys there, and they were all telling these war stories of, boom, this is coming in and that's coming, and I'm saying, wow, I was there, for Christ's sake, for 20, I must have been in that. I said, wow, man, I must have seen a lot of this stuff. Maybe that's why I drink. I'm probably shell-shocked. You know, with all of this stuff, the way they describe it, that's why I drink the way I drink, because I'm shell-shocked, you know. So the more I said it, the more I believed it, you know. I had a lot of problems with my kidneys, too, when I drank, you know. And I said, that's probably why, because I'm shell-shocked. When I used to wake up in the bed, it was always wet. I said, I was shell-shocked. That's what, not the drinking, the shell-shocked. But since I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I never wet the bed. I don't know why. Maybe I'm not shell-shocked anymore. I don't know. But again, we got back, and we come back to, they took us off the boat, they put a bunch of us into a plane, and I flew into Philadelphia. And they said, you're going into Kilmore, and you're going to get discharged. I said, what? I'm going to go into Kilmore to get discharged? I said, I'm what, 70, 80 miles from New York? What, are you crazy? I said, I'll see yous. So about 10 of us took off. We said, what are you, crazy? We've been away for almost 2 years. And we took off to New York. And I stayed in New York for about 3 days, you know. And I wound up being brought back again anyway. But I filtered in this time. Nothing happened to me. And I got discharged. And I'll tell you the truth, it was quite an experience I had while I was in the service. I met a lot of guys, and we did a lot of drinking, and I did a lot of wheeling and dealing. I used to sell trucks. I used to sell Jeeps. Jesus, Mary Joe. The Turks and the Greeks were my biggest customers. They couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak Greek or Turk. And I used to sell them the water buffaloes. And they used to roast them. You know, always sold them for booze. Always booze. And I used to sell half-ton trucks and Jeeps to anybody who wanted to buy them, you know. And the driver that I had with me, what a name. I'll never forget him because I loved him. His name was Otis Inkerman. How in the name of God could you be baptized with a name like that? Otis Inkerman. He was the company driver, and he used to drive me all around when I was selling these trucks, selling to whoever wanted to buy them. And we always sold it for booze. We always had booze parties, you know. And again, that was gone because I was back in the States, and I picked up where I suppose I left off. And with me, it was, trouble seemed to stay with me, though. I still stayed in a lot of trouble. I got into a jam, and one of the bad things about going into blackouts and having a problem with alcohol is when you're running numbers and taking book. I was working for some heavy hitters in Brooklyn, and I was going into blackouts, not remembering where to Christ I put the slips, you know. You don't fool around with guys like that, you know. And they tell you, Tom, you can't do this, you know. I said, I don't know what I did with them. They said, you don't know what you did with the slips, you don't know what you did with the money. You don't know nothing, huh? I said, hey, come on, give me a break, will you? They said, we're going to put you in the river. I said, oh, come on. So I had a couple of friends, and anyway, I got laid off instead of laid out. You know, it was one of those deals, and that was a job that was in the past. And I went on with my life. I continued on. Drinking seemed to just follow with me, and trouble. Alcohol and trouble always went together. I don't know why. I'm not going to stand here and tell you every time I drank, I got in trouble. But I do know whenever I got in trouble, I was drinking. And I didn't have to be drunk to be in trouble, but I got into a lot of it. I went along for a number of years, and I got into a line of work. I got into the construction industry, and I'm still in it. After 42 years, I'm still a structural iron worker, you know, and I made a lot of money, and I still do a lot of things, but it's great. It's a good trade, and I got married, and I started to raise a family, and the drinking never stopped. The trouble just kept coming with me. And it seems that after a period of time, I was a runaway drunk. When pressure got too much at home. Like, when are you going to paint the bathroom? Or can you change that light bulb in the hall upstairs? You get an electrician. You get a painter to do that stuff. I don't have the time to do that stuff. I'm afraid I'll miss something in the saloons. So I never had time for that. And that's what happened to me. I just kept running and drinking, and I was the type of hoople who would usually go out bouncing on a Friday night. It could have been a Thursday night or a Wednesday night. It didn't make no difference. I never looked at my watch or the calendar. But Friday, you always was payday. You had a few rubles in your pocket, and I would get all dappered up. I'd get the confirmation suit out, white shirt, tie, take a shower, the juice. Oh, man, you put that on. The hair had to be just perfect. The tie, crease in the pants, shine shoes, and you just shuffle on down to the nearest watering hole. You just move on, and you start ordering them and sucking them down. And what would happen to Tom, in most cases, I would wake up maybe 2 or 3 days later in Prospect Park full of bird shit. Now, what gave me a lot of problems was what in the name of God happened to the guy who wouldn't leave the house unless every hair on his head was perfect. Would take the pants off if they weren't creased. Wouldn't wear the shoes if they weren't shined. What happened to that guy? Today I know what happened to him. When that guy picked up a drink, he didn't particularly care what the hell he looked like. He didn't particularly care what the hell you look like. All he seemed to be concerned about was where the next drink was coming from. That seemed to be what he was concerned about, and that was my problem. And I continued going in that direction, getting deeper and deeper and deeper into trouble. And I'll tell you the truth, there's, in my opinion, the disease of alcoholism is bottomless. I don't think there's any bottom that you can hit. I don't believe there is. If a fella picks up a drink or a gal picks up a drink, I think a trap door opens up and you go down further than you were. So I believe in many guys and gals that come in here and tell us, please, please, don't go out there because it gets worse, And I believe in that. I found myself as a runaway drunk. I woke up many times, just to give you an example of the blackouts with me. I remember being in Brooklyn on a Friday night. They used to have the fights on Friday nights. And I remember being there in the saloon, at the bar, watching a fight, dumping a few. And the next thing I know, some woman who was beating me with a dry mop. I was on the outside porch on one of those little swinger couches or whatever the hell they call them, and she was beating me with this dry mop. And it was about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I wake up and I'm saying, Ma, come on, Jesus Christ. And I jumped out 2 or 3 feet and I look up at her. I said, Ma, what are you hitting me? You don't live here. I says, I know, Ma, but come on, give me a break, will you? And she comes down the steps and I take off, and I'm going up the street mumbling. What the hell's the matter with that one? For Christ's sake, and I'll say, where the hell am I? I'm looking around. I said, oh man, not again. Because I wind up in strange places. Here it was, I found out, I wouldn't stop anybody. I'd stop that years ago and say, excuse me, sir, where am I? Come on. Too macho for that stuff, My ego wouldn't allow me to do that. Now I got to find a store, see if I can get a newspaper or something, find out where the Christ I am. And where am I? I'm in St. Louis. And it's Sunday morning. I remember watching the fights Friday night. And here it is, Sunday morning, about 7 o'clock, in St. Louis. I don't know anybody in St. Louis. Nobody is with me. I still don't know anybody in St. Louis. But how I got there, I don't know. I know I couldn't have drove. I know I didn't take a train. I must have flew there. Why? I don't know. But that's how I woke up out of a blackout. I woke up many times in Hoboken, in Jersey, because the saloons never closed there. You know, that I can understand a little bit, but not in St. Louis. Anyway, you know, you go to the phone, you put your head in your pocket, you got a couple of tokens, a little bit of silver, you got to call up, hello, Vito, would you do me a favor, send me a few hundred, you know, I'll see you when I get back, you know, the old bullshit. You know, you get the money and back to Brooklyn you go, you know. And that was the story of my life. And one day, I woke up after another runaway, and I woke up in furnished rooms. There had to be about 6 rooms. I'm saying, where the hell am I now? And on the floor, there was pizza pies, chicken bones, you know, whiskey bottles, beer bottles. I'm saying, holy Christ, how long was I here? You know. See a big pile of clothes over there, and that was my habit too. I would just take the clothes off. I wouldn't go to a laundromat or anything. I'd just throw them off, and I'd go to the store and buy some more. That's how I did it, you know. And I said, wow. I walked out into the street, and I recognized the neighborhood. I said, wow. I felt a little relieved. I said, wow, I'm in Brooklyn, you know, and everybody's looking at you like, what's the matter with that kid, you know? I'm like, wow, look at this, I'm in Brooklyn. I said, this is too much for me. I had a home in Queens. I had a car. I had a wardrobe, all kinds of clothes. Had a good job. I was never the type of guy, I was a provider. You know, I always made sure there was money at home. You know, I would always make sure about that. You know, say I made 300 or something, 200 went home all the time. Because I found out years later that it was because of my ego. I didn't want anybody to point the finger at me and say, sure, that bum is in the saloons. Look at his kids. They're walking around with holes in their shoes, or they don't have any food on the table. You know, that never could happen with me. I would never allow that to happen to me. So that's why I realized today I was a provider. I don't believe it was because I loved my children, because I didn't know, really. Honestly, I didn't know what is meant by love. You know, love to me was, here, go get some candy, and here, go to the movies, and whatever. You know, that was love. And today, it's not. I know that today. Love is much more different today for me. So with that, having all of that stuff, here I was running away. And I returned. I said, I got to do something about this, I says. And there's one way I know I can get back in the ranch. And at this time, I had 7 children. 7 children I had. And I said, the only way I can get back in the ranch is I'll go see a priest, you know. Because I used to go to the track with the priest all the time. They loved the sauce, you know, and the horses. We bet the horse, ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. So I knew. You knock on the door, you see Father Kelly, you tell him to call a bride, and he'll get you back in the ranch. Piece of cake. Anyway, I go to the church where they live, the rectory or whatever it is, and I knock on the door, and a lady comes up. She says, yeah, can I help you? I says, yeah, I want to see an Irish priest. She says, what? I says, didn't you hear me? I want to see an Irish priest. You do have an Irish priest, don't you? She says, you know, we do. I says, oh, could I see him? She says, come in. So I go in, and I'm sitting in there for a few minutes, and this priest comes out. And he says, hello. He says, I'm Father Kelly. I said, oh, my name's Tom. I said, Father, could you do me a favor? I says, you know, I had a few nips. I says, could you call the bride and see if you can't get me back on the ranch or something? You know, I says, I screwed up a little bit, but I'm going to be a good boy. And he says, Tom, he says, you know, he says, you remind me of my brother. I says, what? Your brother? He says, yeah. I says, where's your brother? He says, my brother's an alcoholic. I says, oh, me? You're calling me an alcoholic? He says, yeah. I says, do I look like one? He says, you are one. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll make the call if you promise me you'll go to AA. I says, hey, me? He could have said B, B, C, C, D, D. Who gives a shit? I would have said, sure. You know the alky. Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, what? No big deal. So he makes the call, and I get back in the ranch. So I go. I'm in the ranch. I'm in there maybe about less than 2 hours. The kids there, hello, dad, ba-ba, ba-ba. And knock comes on the door. I said, well, I open up the door, and there's a guy standing there with a suit, gray hair, looked like a doctor. I says, gee, I thought he was lost. I lived by the highway, and I says, yeah, what is it? He says, I'm from AA. I says, what? Hey. Hey. I pull him in, And I look out to see what bus is out there. I said, hey. Holy Christ. This is 2 hours. Jesus Christ. Oh, he says, yeah, Father Kelly told, shh, take it easy, talk low, take it easy. And the kids are in the kitchen, they're looking out, Get in there, get in the kitchen. And then they're upstairs coming, Dad, who's that? Get up, go ahead, get upstairs. I said, what do you want here? She said, my name's Dick. I says, yeah, all right, Dick, my name's Harry. I says, what is it? He says, I got to take you to a meeting. I said, a meeting? What kind of meeting? He says, an AA meeting. I says, AA? I says, AA? He says, yeah, you told the priest. I said, shh, take it easy. I says, my neighbors are going to hear you. He says, yeah, like you give a shit about your neighbors hearing you. So now the next thing I got to do is I got to get this guy out of the house. So I'm like, yeah, let's go, So I tell the kids, I says, I'll see you later. I tell the wife, I'll see you later. And out I go with this guy, And as we go out, I'm looking over the car, I'm looking for banners or something, hey, what the hell is this, And he takes me in the car, and he takes me up to this here place. And we walk into it. It's a big room like this, There's a bunch of people in it, I figured they're looking at me. I'm saying, what the hell are they looking at? I said, my fly open or something? I said, no. He says, they're alcoholics. I says, they're alcoholics? He says, yeah. So some guy walks up to me. He says, my name's Joe. I said, hello, Joe. I said, my name's Tom. He says, you know? I said, well, yeah. I said, I suppose so. Sit up front. I said, what for? He said, so you can hear. I said, nothing wrong with my hearing. He said, just sit up front, kid. I said, all right. So I go up and I sit up front, and Dick comes up with me, we're sitting there. And the guy gets up, and he introduced the speaker, and the speaker gets up. His name is John, and this guy's about 6'3", John. Mean, big. And he starts talking. He's talking about psycho wards, straitjackets, how he was in straitjacket. This guy was mean. He used to beat the hell out of his wife. 7 days a week, this guy used to clock his wife. He threw his mother-in-law down a flight of stairs, this guy. He was mean to his children. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at you people, and I'm saying, Jesus Christ, I'm glad you have a place to come. Because this guy's a Looney Tune, And after he stopped speaking, everybody got up. Whoa! They started clapping, which made it worse for me. I said, now I know there's something wrong with you. And the guys would get up. Thanks, John. You don't know how much you helped me. I said, helped you? And the women, oh, John, I can identify with you. I said, holy Christ, Wow. I said, this is something. Then 5 guys walk up to me. 5 of them. And they say, kid, you got a sponsor? I said, sponsor? Who, me? A sponsor. I said, I made my confirmation. I was about 13 years old. I sponsored. They said, no, not that. A sponsor in AA. I said, no, I got no sponsor. Why, I need one. I said, yeah, you need one. I said, wait here. And they went over to a table like this, and they took out a deck of cards, these 5 guys. And they started cutting the cards. And I'm watching them, and I'm saying, what the Christ is going on? What are they playing for me? What, are we going to bed together? And so, well, what is it here? Because I was in the joints where we used to play checkers, I said, maybe here they play cards. I don't know. Anyway, three of them come back to me and they says, where are your sponsors? I says, you three are my sponsors. I says, yeah. What about you two? We lost. So that's how I got my sponsors when I come into AA. And I said to one of them, that guy that was playing, that was speaking there, he says, yeah. Can you identify with him? I said, well, a little bit. So what do you mean? I said, well, I made the flight deck a lot of times because there was no rehabs or detoxes in the times that I was drinking. And what happened, you used to be thrown into the flight decks all the time. And you were mixed with the junkies and the schizos and the alkies. We're all in the same bing. And that's why I used to wind up a lot of times. And you always played rummy. I remember them. I played rummy with Napoleon, Caesar, you know, Al Capone. Because there's a lot of Looney Tunes in there, you know. And here I am. See, the alcoholic, about 2 or 3 days later, you sort of come down, you know. And you're playing. Caesar, how many you want? 2? 2. Napoleon, how many you want? And I'm saying to myself, what the Christ am I calling this guy Caesar? He don't even look like him. So you know you're down and you know there's something wrong here. What am I doing here? I said, so I can identify a little bit with that guy. And I remember they had the doctor, the psych, used to go see him every Wednesday in the flight deck. All you had to know was what day it was and who the president was. That's all. So I got into the habit where I used to say, I'll be on the street this afternoon, you know. I said, I know, today's Wednesday. I says, Truman. Truman's the president. What the hell we got to worry about, you know? So I go in, see the doc, you know. You're all sitting on the benches out there, just moving down, you know, and sit there. And then you go in, you know. You go in, hi, Doc, how are you? Oh, hi, Tom, how are you? Good, Doc, feel great. He said, what's your mother's name? I said, Mom. He sends me back. I mean, I personally, even to this day, it's a little hard. If somebody says, what's your mother's name? I mean, wouldn't most of us say, well, Mom? We call her Mom. He didn't like that. So I had to go back in again, you know. But that was just some of the places. So I did identify with that guy a little bit, you know. But with that, one of them took me home, and it was the old Bushwick group that was in Brooklyn. It was an old group, and they said to me, we're going to pick you up tonight. We're going to take you to me. We're going to make a chairman out of you. I said, me? I said to myself, these guys know class when they see it. Make a chairman out of me. First meeting, class. They know class. So I go home. They drop me off, and they say they're going to pick me up at 8 o'clock. I'm going to buzz out. They ain't getting me to no other goddamn meeting. How many meetings you go to, for Christ's sake? You're only supposed to go to one a month, ain't you? Anyway, I'm just getting ready to say I got a telephone call. If anybody calls for me, you tell them, you know, I'm not home, that I had to go to work, an emergency, or whatever the case might be. 6 o'clock, the bastards knocked on the door. 6 o'clock, 2 hours early. So I answered the door, never expecting them. You know. I said, my God, what are you doing here? I said, Tom, we're going to that meeting. I said, yeah, you said 8 o'clock. They said, we lie. My sponsors. I said, okay. I go to the meeting, get into the meeting, we all go downstairs. Hi, you got to go to the bathroom? Oh, okay. So I see him raising his hand. I know him, though, good guy. I go down to the meeting, and one of them comes over with me, and he says, yeah, see these chairs here, Tom? He says, you open them up, put them in a row of 12, and go that way until you run out of chairs. I said, wait a minute. I says, I'm the chairman. He says, yeah, there's the chairs. I said, I don't believe this shit. I said, whoa, Tom. I said, what about the guy that gets up here, with the mouth? He says, oh, he's the open chairman. I said, oh, there's a difference. There's a chairman and an open chairman. Oh, all right. So I start opening the chairs, put it in a row of 12 until I run out of chairs. But I tell you what, doing that, what do you think these guys were doing? They were doing the same goddamn thing. They were opening up the chairs too, right alongside of me, regardless of their sobriety. Whether they had years, months, or days, they were doing the same thing they suggested very strongly for me to do. So I learned in this here program that it was the power of the people, such as yourselves, that made me see the light. Nobody was pulling strings. Nobody was playing rummy in the back while I was doing the work. If I was out front watering down the coffee, they were in the back watering down the milk. You know, that's what we used to do in the old days. You didn't have the bread, you know. You used to get the stale buns and everything, you know. But everybody was doing something. So I caught on, you know, and I started to get into the program. And I suggest this for anybody, anybody. AA is a fantastic program, and it can give you so many things. Believe me, what a life it can give you. And what a life it has given me. You gotta understand, you've heard my story in a sense, you know where I came from. And yet when I came through that door, nobody asked me where I came from or what I'd done or anything like that. You accepted me for what I was. And for that, I'll be forever grateful, because you made me part of something, something that I never was. I never was part of something. You know, I always had to be in control of something. And you people taught me a different way of life. And it didn't come overnight. You know, it was a struggle. It certainly was. If there's anybody here tonight that is going through emotional problems, financial crisis, debts in the family or whatever, believe me, we've gone through them too. Regardless, a person who's sober for a long time or whatever, don't you think he or she experiences those feelings? We do. You cut us, you know, we bleed just like anybody else. So I sort of get uncomfortable when people give the impression that, well, you don't understand how I feel, you know, because, you know, I'm going through this relationship, or I'm going through this here job crisis or something. For Christ's sake, I walked around in AA with holes in my shoes. You know? But I'll tell you something that I was told very early in AA. I was told I would never sleep in a park, and I would never be broke as long as I was sober. And that, to me, is very true. There was many days that I walked around in sobriety with nothing but silver in my pocket. But I was not broke. And I have yet to sleep in the park or in a car or on a bench simply because I was sober. So there's a lot of things to be done in this here program. And we're the ones that can do it. Like I said, look at what we did here, you know, at the National. I was fortunate enough to be the chairperson of the Bill W. dinner in New York last year. And we had 2,000 people at a dinner in tuxedos. My wife was with me, who I love very dearly. She was with me on a dais, you know, in a tuxedo, in a hotel, the Marriott, that is on the site of the Astor Hotel, where AA Bill W. dinners were held many years earlier than that one. But in my profession, we took down the Astor Hotel, and now the Marriott is up there. And I says, isn't this a coincidence? Here I am standing here tonight, not this particular night, but that night. I says, and I'm talking to a group of people who, the feeling was great, and we had a great time. A year ago tonight, it just came into my mind, to give you an idea of how wacko some alcoholics get. I was in Vegas with a bunch of fellas and gals. A lot of them are here tonight. And it was coffee time. It was breakfast time. Somebody picks up a newspaper and they say, hey, there's free falling here a few miles from here. Let's go jump. And I says, let's what? Jump. Jump out of a goddamn plane? I says, yeah, let's go. So being a hoople, I says, yeah, okay, let's go. Before you know it, 6 of us are in a goddamn plane, 12,000 feet in the air, jumping out of goddamn planes. Now, if that's something a little wrong with that, I don't know. I remember when I was in the paratroopers, they taught you to holler Geronimo as you went out the door. I never hollered Geronimo. I used to holler, help. And strange as it sounds, that morning I went out the door saying, help. So it didn't change, and that's just to give you an idea of what AA does and how close it knits it together, where guys and gals get together. And one of the guys' wives was one of the jumpers that night, and she's here tonight too. So I mean, the things that you do together, it's unbelievable. What I would like to mention with the group here tonight, to give you something to take back to your groups throughout the nation. And that is something that we've been doing in New York, in my particular group, for over 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary of doing it. And that is the celebration of Alcoholics Anonymous, which we all know is June 10th, 1935 is when it started. And what we just started 10 years ago, we celebrated it in our own groups. And we did it just as an open meeting. No big hullabaloo where it's costly or anything. We got 3 speakers with over 100 years of sobriety between the 3 of them. We would conduct the meeting as an open meeting. And we would celebrate the anniversary of AA. And I would ask that you bring it back to your business meetings, in your own groups. Can we start it? Can we do it? I know we can do it. Look how we all celebrate the 4th of July. It's a great Independence Day for the United States. The 10th of June is a very independent day for all of us. That is when something started and was given to us to carry on. And it's a great event. It really is. As a matter of fact, one of the speakers that spoke is here tonight also. 2 of them are here tonight, rather. And so it's something that you can do to bring back to your own groups and start something like that, And it don't take much to do it. It really don't, because this here program has given us so much. My son is here tonight too, and he's with a bunch of his friends. And I'll tell you something. I got a lot of respect for a lot of these here bikers that are around this here nation today. I never rode bikes, I think I was too frightened to ride bikes. But I have a lot of respect for them today, and it's great. I have a lot of friends here from New York that we do a lot of clowning around, and it's good. That meeting that I spoke to you earlier about, that I attended just to get off the hook, was in March of 1963. With an attitude that I had, did not believe I was an alcoholic. From that meeting to this meeting, I haven't picked up a drink. In March of 95, that was 32 years. Now again, for a guy with the attitude that came in that I described to you, did make it. So it can be done. Don't think for 1 minute, because you're going through situations, hey, we all go through them. We all do. And one of the biggest things you can do is don't pick up that first drink. If you don't pick up that first drink, you're going to stay sober. You might be mentally wacky and spiritually cuckoo, but that's okay. That's okay. Physically, you're sober. That is the difference. That is the difference. How many of us can turn around today and say, in the old days we used to say, I'll show him or I'll show her. Yeah, what do you show? You don't show nothing. It's still there when you wake up, if you're fortunate enough to wake up. Do you think that that door is a revolving door back there? It's not. How many of us know guys and gals that went out and didn't get back? And don't take that BS about, I'm not afraid of dying. I mean, what the hell, I'll drink myself to death. You know what drinking yourself to death goes with? Suffering. You don't die. It's a lot of BS. You don't die. You suffer. Oh, God, how you suffer. We all know this. And that is what we go through. Some of us say the yets. Yeah, there's a lot of yets in the disease of alcoholism. But before you get to the yets, you got to go through the agains. And we all know what the agains are. We've been there. So, friends, I'll tell you, one of the things I'm going to leave you with is, when I came in, of course, I had the attitude of the streets, and I was looking for the godfather when I came in. Who's the godfather of AA? And to me, it was Bill W. So I searched him out, and I had 29 days of sobriety. And I got him, and I sat him down, and I put in front of him something that would revolutionize Alcoholics Anonymous. I wanted to unionize AA. I did. I've been a union man all my life. And I said, Bill, only $1 a month. You'd still be the president. I'll be the business manager, but you'll be the president. And he laughed at me. That pissed me. He asked me when I had my last drink. That pissed me. He asked me if I had a sponsor. That wrecked me. I had 3 of them. So I left him that day with a bad feeling. And I fell in love with Lois, his wife. Lois never said anything to me but shook her head like this when I told her about unionizing Alcoholics Anonymous. She was going like this. I says, this is the one who put this program together, and he's just the front man. Yeah. And that was the way I left Bill. I met him again about 3 years later, and I remember sitting there, and I said to my sponsor, Jesus Christ, that guy's changed, isn't he? He made sense to me 3 years later. And you know as well as I know what happened. As Tom grew, he grew a little bit, and he learned a little bit. So again, that was the way of things going. So for so many of you, you know, it's just great. It's a program of life. You know, how many have been to other national conferences? Raise your hands. Look at it. Yeah. How many beginners do we have here tonight? Raise your hand. First one. This is your first conference, first national. That's great. That's great. I'm not a betting man, but I'm willing to bet this won't be your last one. There'll be more coming, you know. And with this, I married a woman who I fell in love with in this program. She's in the program, and I'm a very happy man. We go all over this country together. It's part of my work, and it's great. Everybody gets a kick out of that. They say, what's the sense of retiring? For Christ's sake, you don't do shit anyway. A lot of truth to that, you know. But we go on. With that, I want to thank you people for listening, and I want to thank God for another day of sobriety. Thank you.
Good time.